Welcome to the Green Drinks Spotlight, featuring the best of our virtual Green Drinks sessions. On this spotlight, we welcome Patrick Chouinard of Element 5, where he will talk about the work they are doing to bring mass timber to Canada.
Okay. We're in the midst of a revolution in the construction industry, which is characterized by buildings which are being prefabricated in factories and shipped to site for assembly rather than construction. And until recently, the building that you see here was the tallest modern wood building in the world, and it was at the, it's called the Brock Commons Building, and it's at the University of British Columbia. This building was constructed on a concrete podium, and then on top of the podium sat these glulam columns that you'll see here on the left-hand side. And on top of the glulam columns would sit the CLT panels, floor panels, and then above that, more columns, more panels, etc. Interesting about this building is not only is the structure of the building prefabricated, but the envelope panels that you see here were prefabricated as well. And these panels were made in a factory, and the panels included the structure of the panel, the cladding that you see there, the windows and the doors. So as the building went up a couple floors, these panels were hoisted into place and fastened to the outside of the building. So this is an 18-story building, and it was rendered completely weather-tight in 9.5 weeks. Just to give you an example of some of the things that are happening, at least here in the Ontario marketplace, there's a lot of excitement about the mass timber industry, and there's a number of buildings that are in various stages of design and development. This is 80 Atlantic Avenue. It's a 5-story office building. It's one of the few buildings that have been built in the city of Toronto out of mass timber within the last 100 years. George Brown College is building a 10-story building on Toronto Waterfront. The University of Toronto is building a 14-story building. Centennial College is building a 6-story building, and I'm sure that Mark will talk a little bit more about this building since Ellis Don has the contract for it. This is a building that soon will be under construction. It's called 77 Wade Avenue, also in Toronto. This company, Hines, they have come up with their own brand of mass timber building, which they call T3 buildings. They built their first building in Minneapolis, another one in Atlanta, and now they're building 2 massive buildings that they call T3 Bayside on the Toronto waterfront. They're building 2 more buildings on Sterling Avenue in Toronto. And I see that Adamo has joined us here, and who knows this project intimately with shop architects. This is the distillery building, or the ribbon building, that's going to be constructed in the distillery district of Toronto. So why all the interest in mass timber? Well, it really depends on who you're asking. If you're speaking with owners and developers, it's all about return on investment. Mass timber buildings have the propensity to be built at lower cost, and in addition to that, tenants are willing to pay a premium to be in these buildings because of these, absolutely beautiful buildings. So the fact that you can build them at lower cost and get a higher premium means that owners and developers are getting a higher return on their investment. Speed of construction, certainly, if referring back to the Brock Commons building that was completely weather-tight in 9.5 weeks, certainly the structure of the buildings go up more quickly than conventionally constructed buildings. In addition to that, when the site work is being done on a building, mass timber buildings are being constructed in a factory at the same time. And when they're shipped to site, they're assembled rather than being constructed on site, so they go up much more quickly. If you speak to the environmentalists, as Tim mentioned, it's all about the environmental benefits. It's all about carbon sequestration and using, natural, renewable, sustainably harvested materials. But there's also the human factor. There are a number of studies that have been done that show that there are health benefits associated with living and working and educating our children in buildings where there's a higher wood content. So I was asked to talk a little bit about Element 5. We are a startup company, essentially. I started the company at the end of 2019, so we've been operational for less than 5 years. One of the first things that we did, and fortunately we were able to buy the assets and all of the equipment of a small CLT manufacturing company that's located in Ripon, Quebec, which is about an hour due east of Ottawa. It's a small facility. It's about 13,000 square feet. You know, this is CLT manufacturing 101, and if you look at the top left-hand corner, what you'll see is a vacuum press. This is basically a bed that you lay the materials in. You have automated glue applicators that put glue on the surface, and then you have this rubber membrane that you drape over across the bed, and you fasten down with these fasteners that you see around the outside, and then we suck the air out of it, and that creates compression on the panels until the glue's set. With this process, we can only manufacture about 3 panels per day. So it's a pretty slow process. And then we pick up the panels with the overhead gantry that you see there, and then we move them to other parts of the factory, and then we hand frame everything. We use hand tools basically to cut everything to size and shape. We quickly learned in this industry that in order to manufacture panels, there are very few architects and engineers that know how to design and engineer mass timber buildings. So we realized that if we wanted to ultimately sell something, we had to handhold these projects from early stage design through to the point where we could actually manufacture materials. So we're a full service organization. We provide cost consulting, design consulting, engineering, 3D modeling, shop drawings, fabrication, and we also quickly learned that there are very few companies in the industry that know how to put together these buildings, so we ended up having to take the contract for the assembly of these buildings as well. This was one of our first projects, a small commercial project in Orillia. It's called the Waterfront Center. When we sold this project to the general contractor said, well, you know, how long do you think it's going to take to put this building together? And honestly, we had no idea. We said, oh, well, 4 days, I guess. And the materials were delivered to site on a Wednesday morning. By noon, all of the glulam columns and the beams that you see here were assembled. And by 5 o'clock, all of the CLT panels were on the roof. And so this entire structure only took a day to assemble. And at that point, we knew that we were onto something. This is the first project that we did where we used CLT for the exterior walls. This is a cafe in Gatineau, Quebec. We started to get into the commercial market space. We sold this to I believe it was the Ministry of Environment. This is an entirely CLT little structure. It's a bird banding station. And this entire structure was erected in a single day. A little more on the commercial projects. We provided all of the structure for this flat building on the front of the Pharmacie Brunet, which is a health center and a spa. And this is what the building looks like on the inside. Photo on the right. This is the first project that we did where we sold NLT. So this is a hybrid structure. It's a steel building, and we supplied all of the NLT panels that you see here. This is called the Living Libations building, and one of the challenges with CLT is if you have to span long distances between structural members, you have to increase the thickness of the CLT considerably. And if we were to have sold strictly CLT for this project, it would have been cost prohibitive. So we came up with what we now call box panels. They're hollow core CLT panels that have a CLT slab on the bottom, a CLT slab on the top. There's an engineered joist in between, so these panels are actually hollow in the inside. So they're actually stronger than CLT, and because they're hollow, it's a solution that's much more cost competitive against concrete. We recognize that there's a need for about 130,000 houses for First Nations communities across Canada alone, not including what's necessary in the United States. Certainly some challenges to be able to build in these remote communities, and it made sense for us to prefabricate homes out of CLT. We also introduced with this project what we call our CLIPS panels, which stands for cross-laminated insulated panels. And these are panels that come with a CLT interior layer, the insulation pre-installed, and then optionally the cladding and the windows and doors installed. So we flat packed this home and we shipped it to New Brunswick. And this was the first model home ultimately for the sale of homes for First Nations communities. The next major CLIPS panel that we sold was for this project. It's the Oakville Fire Hall. This is currently under construction. The back section of this building is out of steel, and the front section of this building is a post and beam structure. We sold our CLIPS wall panels for the entire building, which you see here, and we supplied what we call show sugiban siding. It's burnt wood siding. So interestingly, this is a fire hall that's made out of wood with burnt wood siding on the outside. So we're quite pleased with that. We've productized our offering for fire stations so that integrating both the structure and the envelopes, and we've since sold a second fire hall, which we're installing this fall. This building is another level of maturity from our box panels. This, in fact, is a 9-meter grid pattern, and we sold and engineered our box panel system to span a 9-meter grid pattern here. So this now opens up the opportunities to be able to sell mass timber in situations which would more commonly be better suited by concrete. We continue along the vein of selling into First Nations communities, and this is an Aboriginal healthcare center in London, Ontario, which we are delivering again this fall. The largest project that we have won so far is the Toronto Regional Conservation Authority. This is a 80,000 square foot post and beam structure, and we are delivering it and erecting it in mid-November of this year. So we had always had our sights set on a larger building in Ontario for the larger market space. We honestly believe that Ontario will become a center for the mass timber industry, at least in the whole eastern half of North America. We see tremendous opportunities to be able to sell buildings into the central United States and the whole eastern seaboard. So there are many, many opportunities that are currently in our pipeline. And so about 2.5 years ago, we started working on the construction of a new plant. These are photographs that were taken just the other day. It's a 133,000 square foot building. We have a capacity of about 45,000 cubic meters of CLT, 5,000 cubic meters of glulam, which is the equivalent to about 8 Brock Commons buildings per year, and will employ about 50 people and create about 240 jobs in related manufacturing, sawmills, transportation, and the logging sectors. So again, thank you very much, Nick and Raymond, for the opportunity to present. And I will be in one of the breakout sessions, I think room 3, and look forward to answering any additional questions that you may have.